Hey, hey, ladies. Hello, hello, and welcome to Button the Jeans community. If you are new, I am Rose Stein. I created this amazing group to help support you in tips and tricks and specific guidance on how to get the body back in shape, right? Lift the weight from the mind, from the shoulders, from the heart, from the body. And we have a very special guest today. This is Dr. Raphael Retner. Woohoo! I am so glad that you are here. I have known this amazing man for many years, and he has supported me and helped me on my journey with my physical body, with my mental body. And I am so glad that he is here. So he's got an amazing business that is called the Advanced Weight Loss and Wellness Center. And he's here to tell us some really cool things about how we can not just supercharge our weight loss, but find the key that we need to unlock that stubborn weight loss. So Dr. Raphael, thank you for being here.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Awesome. So, it was kind of fun. I was on your website and I was reading a little bit about the about you. And I actually didn't know that you, as a child, struggled with some health issues and a little bit of weight and a wheat intolerance. Is that one of the things that really sparked your interest in health as a child?
My mother was very into healthy cooking and healthy eating. I'm not a vegetarian, but she used to go to vegetarian resorts back in the late 1940s, and she got me interested in chiropractic and health food, and we used to eat chard and beet leaves and all sorts of good healthy food back when I was a kid, and I still love those today. I'm getting back into more of the bitter vegetables because they're good for the microbiome.
Man, that is so true. So just like curious back then, how did you discover and find out that you had like a gluten intolerance?
Well, what happened was uh, at the dinner table, I wasn't given much chance to talk. So I had to stuff my feelings and what I wanted to communicate. So after this huge dinner, I would go to the bread drawer and eat breadsticks and crackers and whatever just to feel full. And when to me, full back then meant totally stuffed where I couldn't fit anything else in. And I've since learned to master something called systematic undereating, which means at the end of each meal, you're a tiny bit hungry because after 15 minutes, you won't be hungry anymore. But it
Mm.
helps for optimal digestion. And people who live over 100 years old in other countries practice that as well.
Hmm. There's a saying. I think it's a Japanese saying where it says like eat until you're a little bit hungry or something, like still a little bit hungry. Like you want to
Yeah.
stop eating when you're still a little bit hungry. Yeah, there's something like that, which is so foreign. I mean, when you talking to you right now and you sharing your experience as a child, that's what I thought being full meant was stuffed,
Yeah.
and satisfied and stuffed kind of became one and the same for me. And that caused a lot of problems in my life.
We're also taught to clean our plate, make sure it's empty.
Mm,
And
that's
there's no
right.
law that says you have to have the plate clean. And what you'll notice is if you stop eating when you're a tiny bit hungry, your digestion will be nice and easy. You'll have lots of energy. But if you eat one crumb more than that, then you get the indigestion and the weight gain and everything else. The other thing on my website is something about night eating syndrome. You
Yeah.
familiar with that? So that
I can imagine what you mean by it, but tell us.
Yeah, it's basically um, if you eat after dinner a lot of carbs and snacks and salty foods and fatty foods, what happens is, again, it's for emotional reasons usually, and not because we need those foods. And that causes an imbalance in the bacteria in the gut. It also causes, you're taking in more calories than you need to. And it's the opposite of intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting, you quit at the end of dinner and start eating at around 11 in the morning. And basically, when you do that, you have a chance to produce the really healthy bacteria in your gut. And if you don't take time off, you won't be able to do that.
Got to have a break. The rest and digest system
Yeah,
needs to cleanse
sure.
out. So, yeah, you mentioned the microbiome a couple of different times, and I sent out an email this morning to all of you wonderful ladies. So check your emails, just giving a high overview of the microbiome. So it's like that the bacteria in the gut. And from what I understand, there's like beneficial bacteria that help us digest and feel healthy. And I think there's one that creates a couple of vitamins, I believe, some digestive enzymes, things like that. And then there's some not so great ones. So can you maybe dive a little bit deeper and explain what
Sure.
you mean by a healthy microbiome?
All right. So first of all, to find out what's in your microbiome, there's a test called Biome FX,
Mm,
which well worth getting because you can, if you have a stubborn weight loss problem and you've got the unhealthy bacteria, you can find out which ones, and then you can take the right supplements and balance it out. And without even changing any of your diet, you'll still lose weight just because you have the right bacteria. It helps to have a healthier diet, but you can lose weight without it. So I'd like to first talk about there's a ratio of bacteroides to firmicutes. A fast food and processed food diet high in protein, sugar, and fat cause an increase in firmicutes. Obese people often have an increase in firmicutes. So
mm,
you want to look at that ratio. It's very important. And then the next one is Akkermansia muciniphila. That's an aerobic keystone species, and it's a bacteria that reverses high-fat diet induced mass fat gain. So that's a good one to have. And it also takes care of the mucosal lining of the gut, and intermittent fasting helps the mucosal lining of the gut. And if your mucosal lining is messed up, then you can get the where the leaky gut syndrome. So that we've all heard about, where you're absorbing things that shouldn't be absorbed. Next one is called Bifidobacterium species. They help reduce body weight and produce conjugated linoleic acid. So it helps to eat avocados and not nuts for that one. And there's some Megasporebiotic and HU58 are good supplements for that.
mm.
And also CoQ10 and carnitine, if you have that. Then there's also the butyrate and acetate. They're associated with leaner body mass. Short chain fatty acids stimulate the release of leptin, which improves satiety. So if you have too little leptin, you're not going to ever feel hungry. Your food's thermostat's going to be off. So there's a balance of leptin and ghrelin. So you have to have that balance to know when to stop eating. Just because you eat less, if you have quitting before the end of the meal doesn't mean you're eating the proper amount. You may be eating too much because your system's thrown off. The other thing that throws the leptin and ghrelin off is something called LPS, or lipopolysaccharides.
So when you say the leptin and the ghrelin, now those are hormones, right?
Yeah. So basically, if you have too much, if you have an imbalance in leptin and ghrelin, you won't know when to stop eating, and you'll eat too much. That's why you have people who are obese just keep eating because they don't know when to stop. And then there's also something called short chain fatty acids. These are they're helped by intermittent fasting, taking lemon water, fermented foods, and dandelion root or burdock root tea is another good thing for that. And adrenal recovery soup. It's another one. And speaking of soup, there's another soup.
What's in that soup?
I don't know. I just heard about it today.
I
But you
think
can Google it.
probably, yeah, if I had to guess, I would say it would be like sunchokes, a sunchoke soup.
Yeah. But there's also another soup called Roots of the Earth soup, which I give to my weight loss patients. I made a list of all the vegetables you could possibly eat that are high in potassium.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave the list to a gourmet chef at a restaurant in Mill Valley, and he created this recipe. So it's absolutely delicious and nutritious. If you're exhausted by evening time and you drink the soup, you'll have lots of energy and feel totally recuperated.
Oh,
So,
I love that.
so food is our best medicine.
Oh, it is absolutely the best when done right. It like
Yeah.
literally nourishes, right? Like it should be nourishing. And when we say food, I imagine that we both probably have the same thing in mind, real food.
Yeah. Real food, not junk food or fast
Real
food.
food, right? With one ingredient. I mean, yeah, you can cook it up and make it soup or do whatever you want with it, but you got to start with the real thing, like
Yeah.
that you know exactly what it is. It was probably grown or it was at least happy when it was alive. And that really just makes such a difference because it's information, right? So when you're talking about all the different hormones getting out of whack, what I understand food to be is information for the body for triggering the right reactions, including all of the balancing of all the different hormones, which then affect my mood, my attitude, my clarity, my energy, my weight, all of it.
So the speaking of hormones, we talked about adrenal soup, adrenal recovery soup.
Yeah.
So if your adrenals, if you've had a lot of stress in your life, um, cortisol comes out, and that puts weight around the belly, fat around the belly. And if you have a thyroid problem, you'll have weight all over the whole body.
Mhm.
And speaking of thyroid, there's most people who suspect they have thyroid problem go to their medical doctor and get 3 tests, T3, T4, TSH,
Mhm.
and then they tell them that they're perfectly normal, go home, it's all in your head or whatever, eat less, exercise more. But the truth is there's 9 thyroid tests altogether. And if you're not getting all 9, you may miss a thyroid problem. But you can
Mm,
suspect it if the weight is evenly distributed all over your whole body.
mm,
And
mm.
getting back to the microbiome for a second, with the microbiome, they did a test with identical twins, one who was obese and the other was thin. And they fed the microbiome of the obese twin to to a rat, and it became obese. And they fed the microbiome to a thin twin, and it became thin. And then they switched the microbiomes, the feeding, and the rats switched as well. So what's in your gut definitely affects your weight, and there's scientific research to prove that.
Isn't that wild? I mean, could you have even imagined what we now know about the body to have
Yeah.
been like, scientifically proven and like kind of common knowledge, like in the health arena? Even 10 years ago, my son's pediatrician told me that I was crazy for giving him probiotics because he had eczema. He was like, "That's ridiculous. The gut doesn't have the gut bacteria has nothing to do with the skin." That's
Yeah.
literally what he said to me.
And the skin is our biggest organ of elimination. So it's
It's totally-
not
yes,
coming out through the bowels, it's coming out in the skin. So did the
right.
probiotics help him?
Yes. Like within 2 weeks, it was halfway cleared up. And that's when I went to the doctor and I was like, "Hey, by the way, you guys, like, you might want to know this because this helps." And they shook their head. And they're like, "That's ridiculous. You're crazy." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. Maybe I am crazy." So I stopped giving it to him. Right. I felt like I was like, "Well, what do I know? I'm not a doctor."
Yeah.
And then it came back within 2 weeks. It was full force back, flared up in pain, all just, eczema all over the back of his legs. And
Right.
then
But
I thought,
he probably had some food allergies too.
well, I didn't know he's now gluten free. I didn't
Yeah.
know that information back then, that he was only 2 when this happened. He had like surgery on his ears and he always had ear infections and he just had one issue after the next. And
Yeah.
you're right, it took me another few years to finally do an elimination diet. And as soon as we were adding food back, he had a piece of bread and it was like
Yeah. I believe it.
yeah, and he kind of looked at me and he was like, "Well, I guess it's the gluten, mom." And we just kind of both went like he was 8, we
Yeah.
just kind of both went like this. We're like, "Okay, no more of that. It's gone."
So I've taken the first two foods I take weight loss patients off of are wheat and dairy products. They're the most common allergens. But I do that in the beginning of any weight loss program. I take them off wheat, dairy. I test for the other ones, but usually it's the nightshade family: eggplant, bell pepper, tomatoes, potatoes, cayenne pepper, paprika. Corn and soy are common also. Beans are common, eggs. So all these things are most of us eat commonly. And if you're not testing for that in the beginning, there's a saying, to not to test is to guess. So it's important to test for allergies in the beginning. It makes it easier to lose the weight long term.
You know, what's interesting too, I've done two different kinds of tests, right? I've done allergy type of tests at a traditional, like at Kaiser, at a doctor's, Western medical doctors. And then I've also done some allergy tests with a functional medicine doctor, and they were very different. Meaning that like what they test for and the parameters to let me know if I was out of normal range were very different. And I think that it's probably because normal in society has really shifted from healthy to common. Right?
Right.
And so when we're talking about a normal range, we're talking about the average of all the Americans alive right now, or all the people alive right now, not really giving us a good understanding of optimal kind of energy and health, of what's actually available to us. Would you
It was
agree?
the standard American diet, which isn't very healthy. So
It's a real bummer. So you do that more functional medicine type of
yeah,
testing, right?
right. We also test for fast and slow oxidizer. Some people,
What's that?
a fast oxidizer uh, has to have breakfast right away because they get hungry and they get something called hangry. Um, yeah. So if you're a fast oxidizer, you burn your food quickly. Slow oxidizer, you burn it slowly. So
Mm.
if you're a fast oxidizer and you're going on the keto diet, it's a totally different diet than a slow oxidizer. So, and the keto diet is not good for people with thyroid problems either. So it's
Mm.
important to get the testing done in the beginning so you know what you're dealing with. But also, there's a different diet for fast oxidizers. So you want foods that burn slowly. Um, so you want more protein snacks and protein with each meal, and more of a yang diet and the yin and yang of diet. And slow oxidizers could skip breakfast without any problem. They could do intermittent fasting much more easily. So it's a different way of operating. So that's also important.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the other end. Like if I were to do intermittent fasting, it would be easier for me to eat dinner at like 3 than it would be to have breakfast at 11.
Yeah, that is another way to do it too. It's
Mm-hmm.
perfectly okay. It's just taking a break. When you take a break, there are certain bacteria that have a chance to grow. If you're eating 3 meals a day regularly, then that's not the case.
Right. Or if or if there's just not enough time in between the dinner and the breakfast. Also the liver, right? The liver loves that time in between. And it's really important to take a break. Wow.
But also,
Cool.
sleep is an issue as well.
Mm.
There's a saying, you can't expect to lose weight till you correct your sleep problem. So,
Mm.
so what we do with sleep um, is to look first of all um, at sleep supplements. There's certain supplements that you can take that help, like cortisol managers are a really good one. Um, certain types of melatonin are good. There's also ashwagandha is very good, but
Mm.
sleep supplements not the only way to treat sleep, because you can have an allergy to your pillow if you're using a foam rubber pillow, because foam rubber gives off formaldehyde gas, and your bed you could also be allergic to your bed.
That
Uh,
would
doing screen time late at night uh, should stop before 10 o'clock, maybe a 9 o'clock screen time. And then there's stress. So we use GABACOM for stress. It's a really good one. And it's like sticking a pin in the balloon. It takes the stress away immediately because it goes right to your brain. And it's a wonderful supplement.
Mm.
And then if, as a chiropractor, we look at the upper neck. If you don't sleep one night, your upper neck will go out and then you'll have another bad night's sleep. So it's really good to get to the underlying cause of your sleep issues, because otherwise you're not going to lose the weight, because cortisol will come out when you're not sleeping. It also, when you don't sleep, it causes thyroid problems as well.
Yeah, sleep is important. That's actually came up this week with one of my clients. She was saying that for years and years, she's taken melatonin at night, which has been fine. And she was thinking that maybe she wanted to mix it up and try something different. And ashwagandha was actually one of the things that she mentioned. She was like, "Oh, I heard this thing. Like, should I
Yeah.
try it?"
Well, here's the deal with sleep supplements too. Um, sleeping pills will poison part of your brain and put you to sleep. And after a while, you build up resistance to the poison, and then you need a larger dose. Sleep supplements, your brain gets used to them after maybe between 1 and 3 nights. Then you need to switch to a different supplement. So what we do is rotate the different sleep supplements to make sure you're getting the right one. There's a way to test to see which one you need that night as well.
Mm.
So it's good to rotate them and know which ones are effective and which ones aren't effective. Magnesium is also really good before sleep.
Yes, that one has been very helpful for me as well over the years, especially when I was kind of making a transition between eating, what I thought was mostly a healthy diet. No, no, no. I eat like, 80, 90% good, but I was sick all the time. I was still 40 pounds overweight. Like I wasn't sleeping well. I was still, binge drinking on the weekends. There was a lot of stuff still going on and a little bit chaotic in my habits. And I thought that it was okay because, most of the time I was eating okay. And I found that that can work for some people. It didn't really work out so well for me. That
Yeah.
for me, it really is an all or nothing. And I think probably just because over the years with like the massive weight gain and weight loss and the dieting and the pills and just the stress and like all of that stuff, I think I was so wounded really probably is the word, probably emotionally and physically, that just doing it, most of the time it wasn't enough. It was kind of like having an open wound and like still putting it in the warm water and in the warm water and like rubbing lemon on it and going, "Oh, I don't understand, like why my skin isn't healed." And I never stopped irritating the wound long enough for it to really have some healing, to where now I'm not so affected by, it's just like skin, but like on the inside. That's what I think of my like digestive system. There's supposed to be like a protective layer. And
I'm glad you said the thing about the 10%, because
mm,
that's, most people have that, their diet's pretty good except for that 10%. And that's what needs to change in order to lose the weight, is the foods you're allergic to, the alcohol, the lack of exercise. It's that one extra thing that needs that change, and then it makes a difference. And then there's emotional component
mm,
too. What we do is test people to see if they actually want to lose weight subconsciously, because the subconscious controls everything about your goals and everything else. So if there is a block to wanting to lose weight, then we clear that block, and makes it a lot easier to lose the weight.
yeah, I had that. You helped me do that. I
Yeah.
don't think I told you, but I actually had a conversation when I left your place last time. I called my dad and I had the conversation with
Oh,
him,
good.
and I asked him for, I mean, it seems so silly on one level, but it was kind of like I felt like I was a little girl, and I was like, I think I need permission. I need permission that like if I'm overweight, I'm still lovable, and I need permission to also lose weight and be lovable. And it was really interesting because I didn't even know that I needed that until I started talking,
Wow.
right? Like it's not really something, like we talked about the overweight one, like, am I still lovable? And he's like, of course, honey. And, but we still had to talk it out. And then, yeah, it just came out. I was like, well, what if I'm thin? Like, is that okay too? because that was just a confusing place for me. I started gaining weight when I was 8. And so
Yeah.
my body was still changing. I hadn't even gone through puberty. I wasn't done growing. Like I had no idea what a healthy weight even was. And so that confusion was really put to rest the last session I had with you. So thank you.
You're welcome. So was it scary talking to your dad?
It was. It was totally weird. And I felt like so silly. I mean, so grateful that he's still around and he's willing to have those conversations
Yeah,
with
that's
me. I mean,
great.
that's a really beautiful thing that I can call him and tell him, like, you hurt my feelings when I was 8 and I'm still mad, kind of a thing. And so it was just interesting. I asked him maybe like 4 times, I was like, well, and this was actually really interesting. I said, I think I need you to tell me that I'm lovable no matter what. Then he was like, "Oh, honey, that's ridiculous." Of course. And he went off on a tangent. And I was like, "No, I think I need you to tell me that I'm lovable no matter what." And he was like, "How could you even think that?" And he, you know what I mean? He like was
Sure.
defensive at first. Like, what do you mean I don't love, like, this is insane, right? And it took like 4 times. And finally he said, "Honey, do you need me to tell your little girl that she's lovable no matter what? Or do you need me to tell you right now today that you're lovable no matter what?"
Wow, good question.
Right? That's what I said. And I was like, oh, I just started crying. I was like, both. It's both. I know that I'm 41 years old, but it's both.
So,
And so
so,
he did. He did it. He finally said it. He's like, honey, I love you no matter what. You are lovable no matter what.
so how did that feel?
It was amazing. It was such a relief. The emotional, work that we had done in and around my thyroid area, and you explaining to me about how there were so many times that I tried to speak up, and you explained that too when you were a kid. It was like we try to like have our voice and it's not appropriate, it's not the right time, it's not safe,
Yeah.
whatever it is, when we're kids, and we hold on to it and we hold on to it and we hold on to it. And then of course we have physical issues later on. We're all like energetically tight. And so it was just so nice to have that permission, to have that release, and then be able to have that conversation. And I just want to tell any of you ladies whose father is not willing to have that conversation or is not around to have that conversation, that that kind of healing is still available. It's just a little bit more, it's a little bit more, uh, it's not an actual conversation where you pick up the phone, but you can still have that conversation in your mind and still have that healing process.
Yeah. So what I do working with the emotions is to use muscle testing or apply kinesiology, find out where the emotional block is located. Then we give homeopathic flower essences, which bring the emotions, old emotions up to the surface. You say affirmations, and then you release the old emotion. But sometimes there's a completion to be made, like you did with your father.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a great suggestion too. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
suggesting that I give him a call. It was really beautiful.
Great. I'm glad you did that.
Yeah, me
So
too.
guts to do that.
Thank you. It is. It's totally weird to like speak a truth and ask for what it is that you need, even though it like maybe is uncomfortable. So yeah. All right, awesome. So a little muscle testing. I know that, everything that I do is totally online. Some of what you do is in person. So ladies, if you are in Northern California, I highly encourage you to look up Dr. Retner, and I'll put his information. I'll link it just above this video. Really amazing stuff that you're doing, and I know that you also have offered and are here and able and willing to offer some ladies virtually a little assessment. So will you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit more about that?
Yeah, I'd like to give a free 15-minute consultation. You just fill a form out and then we'll talk about it. It's called the metabolic assessment form. It goes through all the different um, endocrine system, digestive system. I also have a digestive symptom survey form, which I created a form that includes the 10 most common digestive conditions. It includes SIBO and
Mm,
H. pylori and Candida And basically we can tune in and see which, by your score, it's an online form, um, what is it that you're suffering from, and then there's testing you can do to help you with that. Because sometimes these conditions will prevent you from losing weight as well, especially Candida. And so both those are at no charge. And then if you want to work with me, be happy to do that. We could do some work long distance, or it's much better to come in person, but we can get a lot done long distance with the microbiome testing. I also do genetic testing and blood tests and hair mineral analysis. All this can be done long distance.
Yeah.
There is another form of testing that we do in my practice is pH testing, because if your pH is too acidic, what happens is your body steals calcium from your bones, magnesium from your muscles. You get brittle bones and sore, achy muscles. And guess what else happens? Your body holds on to fat. So I always recommend a diet that helps balance the pH, and then you can check your pH. And the pH strips that you test your urine go from green to blue, and so what you want is to be in the green zone. But as Kermit the Frog once said, it's awfully hard being green. So you have to be patient if you want to, get your pH balanced. But once it's balanced, it's not only easier to lose weight, but the Olympic athletes who are in vibrant health have a balanced pH. People in the hospitals with chronic diseases and cancer and arthritis, they all have a very acidic pH. So it's very easy to change your diet and get a more alkaline diet, and then you get a much better, more alkaline pH. You don't want it to be too alkaline either. That's why it's good to measure it as well.
Always balance. It's like the elusive, right? That's what he said. It's not easy being green. That's what it is.
He also said, time's fun when you're having flies.
Oh man, so sweet.
I don't
So cool.
recommend.
You
Okay.
know?
Now, the other thing we didn't talk about is food cravings.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So let's look. There's three main food cravings. One is craving for sugar.
Yep.
And that one gets handled by changing your exercise and your protein. Because if you exercise first thing in the morning, that's going to help balance your blood sugar.
Awesome.
So it's if you have a tendency towards low blood sugar, it's good to get a blood test for hypoglycemia or insulin resistance. So we like to screen for that in the beginning as well. And then there's cravings for bread, bagels, and pasta. That's a serotonin deficiency. So if you're stressed and you need comfort at night, you'll eat too much bread and pasta. That's what when I was a kid, I went for the bread drawer because I had a serotonin deficiency then. And then the other one is cravings for chocolate, caffeine, sweets, fatty foods, salty foods. That's a dopamine deficiency. And dopamine is what gives you lots of energy and a positive attitude, ability to focus and concentrate. So what the foods we just talked about are fattening. But if you do a weight loss program with me and tell me what you're craving, we'll tell you which foods you can eat to boost your dopamine and serotonin that aren't fattening. And that way you can be in charge of your cravings, not have them in charge of you.
Oh, I love that. And that makes so much sense. I think I had all of that. Well, again, because I was just in this roller coaster of like craziness, and it would flow from one issue to the next, and it was just wild. So what about crunchy? I hear that a lot. Oh, I just needed something crunchy. Is it the salt that's usually in crunchy stuff, or what is it that people crave crunch?
It could be the salt, but it's, I think that's people like to eat crackers and nuts and things like that. I have a friend who just shared with me that he had some dental work and the dentist told him, you can't eat any crackers for the next 2 months because it'll mess up the dental work. And guess what? He lost 7 pounds. And I always tell my wife I have a cracker deficiency or a cookie deficiency. So yeah, I think it's just we like to make our jaws work. But there's a saying The bottom line of cravings is reach for your mate instead of your plate.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and if you can't do that, if you don't have a mate, you can do something called self-soothing. So I want everybody to try this right now. Put
Mm-hmm.
your right hand on your heart,
Mm-hmm.
left hand on your forehead,
Mm-hmm.
and think of a recent time that you had a lot of stress, and just feel compassion for that part of you that's feeling the stress. Compassion means to feel from the deepest part of your heart love for that part of you that's hurting. And now say something empathetic to you, something a good lady friend would say to you to give you empathy. Like, you're really hurting now, aren't you? Or that, boy, that is so stressful. So just say something to yourself. And that's called self-soothing. And you do that until the emotion passes or till the craving passes. Because very often we're not craving food, we're craving nurturing.
Mm.
And this method was developed by psychologists and it's very effective. And a great way to reframe eating for emotional reasons is if you had a child, if you had a little girl who was upset and you said, here, eat some ice cream, eat some cake, eat some cookies, that would be a mean thing to do instead of listening to them and giving them empathy. So why would you do that to yourself? So that's why we wanted to give this self-soothing, or take GABACOM also is very helpful. And the craving will pass if you do the GABACOM and the self-soothing. It's very useful to have that.
Very. And it's funny, it doesn't actually last that long. I mean, unless you don't do the self-soothing and then you just like do the trip out on it, right? Like you feed the craving in your mind and you're thinking about it and like all of that kind of craziness. But if you do the self-soothing, it passes in like 30 seconds to like a couple minutes.
Yeah, it's usually not that hard.
It's not that long, but it seems so like, because you just want it like to be done now.
Yeah,
But just practicing that a little bit has been very helpful for me as well. Thank you for sharing that.
you're welcome. Now,
Whew.
in addition to everything else we've mentioned, I do something called metabolic typing.
Oh,
So some people are meant to be vegetarians, some people meat eaters, and I studied with a Dr. Richard Powers, who's a PhD nutritionist from the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. And he has a system where you look at which endocrine glands, like the adrenals, the thyroid, et cetera, were dominant when you were an adolescent, and which foods to eat and avoid, which organs are probably, we call them recessive or weak, which foods you need to strengthen those organs, who should be a vegetarian or a meat eater. And
funny.
some people are vegetarians because they think it's healthy and it's the worst possible diet for them.
For
And
them, everyone's body is different. Yeah, it's so
yeah,
interesting.
so I believe in something called biochemical individuality, which says everybody's body is different. And also, you can be a vegetarian and when you're in your 20s and be really healthy, and then when you get into your 40s or 50s, worst possible diet because the grains start putting the weight on. So it's very dependent on a lot of your metabolic type, your blood type, your bone structure, um, and your hormones. So it's good to know exactly what the diet is that's best for you. Also work with Chinese medicine to figure out which organs are weak and which foods you need to strengthen those organs. And Ayurvedic medicine from India, which also fine tunes your diet. So when you're eating your genetically ideal diet and your optimal diet according to Chinese medicine and Ayurveda, much easier to lose the weight, keep it off, get vibrantly healthy. And my goal is to see people, the first visit they come in, they're all tired and worn out and they're overweight. And then after they go through my program, part of the best part of the program is the cleanse, because fat isn't just fat, it's fat mixed with toxins. So cleanse the heavens part and you hear the angels sing and people come in vibrantly healthy. They just radiate health and they're smiling and the weight's coming off and it's really nice to see that. So that's where I get paid is through seeing the transformation that takes place. but we work really hard to support you in getting to the bottom line of the cause of the weight gain rather than treating the symptom. So I think that's the best way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then you get to the cause, then you don't have to, you're not band-aiding it anymore,
Right.
right? You don't have to go through the cycle over and over and over again because you have clarity on what the issue is. Now, whether you choose to go down that path continuously or not, that's still your choice.
Yeah. But I like to empower my patients to know what to eat
That's
and
right.
avoid for the rest of their life
That's
so
right.
they can do that on their own. And if they slip, they can do a cleanse.
Yep.
So cleansing's great. I like to cleanse it at least once or twice a year. And one of my favorite cleanses is an aloe vera fast for 3 days. Heals
Mm.
the digestive tract, has 0 calories, and kills your appetite at the same time.
Wow. Fancy. All right. Well, maybe more about that next time.
Yeah, we do other cleanses too, because cleanses should be individualized depending on the person who is doing them, because some people have more willpower than others. And a mono fast would be too hard for some people. So we have cleansing diets that very high in fruits and vegetables. So you're not, so you're still eating food. There's also other ones that are much more challenging. And then we have a thyroid cleanse to do too, which I don't know if I ever gave you that one, but if you ever have a thyroid problem, it's good to go on a 90-day thyroid cleanse where you have different smoothies and juices and avoiding certain foods. And it feels wonderful. You know, it's really takes your health to the next level,
Yeah.
next level of health and energy.
All right. Advanced weight loss and wellness. Ladies, you can tell this man has been all over the world, has literally studied everything that has to do with health and wellness that can possibly be studied. He is awesome and amazing. And I'm so grateful to have you as a mentor and a colleague and a friend. And I just thank you so much for your time. Make sure that you send over the little link, and I'm going to add it to the description right up top so that any of the ladies watching the playback can access that little assessment. Or is it on your website?
If you go to my website, Advanced Weight Loss and Wellness,
Yeah.
you can you go to new patient forms and do the five forms. The first one, beginning new patients.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just
And then the other
advanced
one I have to
weight loss
email
and
you.
wellness
If you
stuff.
email me, I'll send you the digestive symptom survey form.
Cool. All right. Awesome. What a pleasure. I know that we will continue to work together. And ladies, if you have any questions, you feel free to reach out to me, or you can just go directly to advancedweightlossandwellness.com, look up Dr. Raphael Retner, and he'll get you all set up with everything you need.
You're also welcome to email me at drretner@sbcglobal.net. That's DRRETTNER at S like Sam, B like boy, C like Charlie, global.net.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. And I know I'll be seeing you soon.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.